Did I? Oh, feedback.
Wow.
Has to turn the mic down on his computer.
Oh, maybe.
What's that? At work?
Yeah.
There we go. We're good.
We're on.
Okay, start with roll call in Supervisor Brewer.
Present?
Tony is absent. Scott Berman here. Rachel Elzinga
It's going to be absent today.
absent. Peggy Von Teen,
Here.
Calvin Jones,
Here.
and Bill Du Bois.
Here.
Okay, we have an agenda. We don't need to vote on the agenda as is.
We do.
Okay. Any comment about the agenda or changes to the agenda?
I move.
Go ahead.
Move to support the agenda approved.
Okay,
Support.
all right.
Give it to you.
Peggy, supported by Kelvin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passed unanimously. Does anybody have public comments? Can you make something up? Okay, seeing no public comments, we'll move on to the approval of, it's actually the April minutes. So just a typo on this, just to be aware. I don't know if that needs to be changed.
All right, we'll take care of that.
Thank you. So have you had a chance to review the minutes? Any discussion about the minutes from the last meeting?
Vice Chair Berman, I move approval of the minutes as presented.
Support.
Fonda moved to accept the minutes. Calvin supported it. With any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are submitted by unanimous decision. Start with old business, starting with the West Saginaw Highway MDOT project, which I assume is the primary topic today.
It is. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. We have you might recognize this crew from the last CIA board meeting or from other meetings here at the township and for future meetings. This is the MDOT West Saginaw Highway project team, or at least most of it. There could be some others out there. So they're here today to kind of follow up on the discussion from the last meeting, but this time there is some concrete plans that they're going to be looking to this group for feedback on. So the vision really was for the visitor to provide some background information via a presentation to you on the overhead and some discussion. And then if you're able to break, I had sent you 3 different PDF. I sent you all kinds of stuff, but of most importance were the 3 design alternatives. So there's 3 plans. You really kind of got to zoom in to see. So if you're just paging through your email, it might look just like 3 images of the corridor, but there's a lot of detail in there. They have taken and printed those at a larger scale so you can really dive into them. So what we're hoping to do is following the presentation, kind of break from the typical format here and go back to the tables and help review those. And if we need to come back here, you can provide formal comment back to the project team, but they're looking for your input on these alternatives. And we have a couple other items that we can go back to at the end of the meeting, depending on time.
Great. Does anybody have any specific questions or anything we want to make sure we cover? I know I reviewed the material and I'll admit that it was somewhat confusing, so I'm anxious to get some further clarity from today, but.
Agreed.
I agree. I'm not a great map looker, so yeah, I need a lot of help on that.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest, Peter? Do they want to just give us a high level overview and present, and then
Yep.
we can go maybe ask questions back
Yeah,
there on the drawings?
Yeah, we'll have Jason go through the presentation and you can ask any questions up front. And then from there, I was envisioning everybody kind of getting up and walking back and looking at
Great plan.
everything. Yep. So apologies to anyone watching online, but that's what this is what
Yeah.
this is gonna look like. All right, with that, this is Jason from the project team. He's with WSP, Jason Witten from WSP, who's partnering with MDOT on this project, and he'll start us off.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for having us back. We didn't blow out last meeting, let us come back, so we appreciate that. We got the whole project team here. Got Mike, Dave from MDOT leading the project through MDOT project managers. We got Jason Fox from WSP as well, who's our engineer for the project. So again, thanks for having us. So real quick, as we do our last meeting, back in April, we presented kind of where we are to date, what we've done to date. We mentioned we had some LAG meetings with we have a local agency group that we meet with on a every other month basis to provide them project updates. I think at our last meeting with the CIA here, we presented the project purpose and need. So again, that was kind of a larger overall presentation of everything done to date. And I think one of the things you mentioned at the meeting, the next big step is to come up with these alternatives. That's the biggest, what everyone wants to see, right? This is what everyone's waiting for. This is the big component of this project. So after that last meeting we had with the CIAs, we got back together with MDOT and we went through all the traffic modeling. We went through, intersections, signal timing, queues, delays, and all that. We went through all this information to finally come up with these final alternatives that we'll present to you guys today. And then eventually we're planning a public meeting sometime in June. So that's kind of where we left off last time. And then just for our meeting today, we really wanted to talk about the alternatives we considered, but weren't moved forward. And then the three alternatives we looked at in greater detail, where we developed engineering design, traffic modeling, and we're moving those forward to present here tonight. And then from there, we'll present two alternatives to the public is the plan. So again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to cut me off. Let me know just anytime. We've got a lot of experts in the crowd that can help with detailed specific questions as well. So I don't know if you ever recalls, but back, you remember year that was the operation template study? It's a
The 2020, I think.
2020. So back in 2020, there was an operational study that looked at a wider range of alternatives. And that's how they came up with the boulevard alternative we're looking at today. But as part of that study, they also looked at a 7-lane roadway with 3 lanes of through traffic eastbound, 3 lanes westbound with a continuous left turn lane. And so I think for obvious reasons, that alternative was kind of eliminated that study as the township didn't want to see that. It's, it's a massive roadway crossing. It's not pedestrian friendly. It doesn't improve the safety, doesn't reduce crashes. So that 7-lane alternative was eliminated during that operational study. And then another alternative that the township asked us to look at was a roundabout at Broadbent. So early on in this study, we looked at a roundabout at Broadbent. And what we found is there's a lot of commercial development, for 20-year projections. So when you put all this new traffic onto the system and then the road connects up to the north of M43 out to Broadbent. So what that does, that brings a lot of traffic onto Broadbent and wants to head southbound and make a left turn. So we looked at a 2-lane roundabout, and what that analysis showed that a 2-lane roundabout couldn't accommodate those heavy southbound left turn volumes. So again, you would have needed probably a triple left or a bypass lane, but so in the end, it was too big. And typically kind of the rule of thumb is if you can't use a 2-lane roundabout still, mostly throughout the United States, is those 3-lane roundabouts are kind of a tricky situation. A 3-lane roundabout really wouldn't fit in the setting. So based on that situation, the roundabout at Broadbent was eliminated. So what happens is, again, that southbound left needs to come down and make a left. While at the same time, there's a very heavy westbound movement. So as all the vehicles are traveling through the roundabout westbound, obviously they're blocking the southbound lane. So those left turning movements and the southbound movement can't get into the roundabout. So you'll see delays and queues as all that westbound traffic's moving through. So that's what that analysis showed. The 2-lane wouldn't work, so it was eliminated at that conceptual traffic modeling stage. And then from that point, and part of this study is, again, the operational study determined Boulevard would be the best option out here. And that was based on capacity improvements and safety improvements. So as part of this study, where we're here today, is we looked at 2 alternatives. Alternative 1 was indirect lefts at all the at Broadbent and at Marketplace. We see those all around the state, indirect left. You can't make a direct left turn. And the other option, we looked at J turns, and we looked at J turns at Marketplace and Broadbent as well. And what you'll see on our board here is we end up looking at 2 different alternatives, a 2A and a 2B. And as we get into the traffic analysis, we'll kind of show you why we had to look at two sub alternatives, 2A and 2B. Is there's some traffic movements that we needed to address. And when we got through this study, we realized we should probably take a look at Saturday peak hour volumes as commercial corridor, right? So we took a look at Saturday volumes, and that really what we came down is we need to look at this alternative 2B with a dual left. And as we walk through this, we'll show you a little more detail what that looks like and where that dual left.
Indirect, like an indirect, what does that mean? Indirect left and a J.
Yeah. So, and I'll show you here. I can pull up real quick. It'll help explain it and show it. It's a little tricky on the screen, as Peter mentioned earlier. It's let's escape out of here and zoom in. Give me 1 sec. So Michigan left, yep, indirect left. Can you all see that pop? Is that, want to zoom in a little more on that?
Yep. There we go.
So commissioners, just remember you got the big screen behind you too.
PowerPoint and these big long boards don't work well together. Okay, so this is the Michigan left, indirect left at Marketplace. So if you want to make, if you're heading westbound an M43 and you want to make that left turn into Marketplace, with this indirect Michigan left option, we have to travel through the intersection, keep traveling westbound, and you'll come to this first median crossover. If you come to the median crossover, we make our left through the median crossover,
Okay.
come back eastbound to the intersection, and now you make your right turn onto Marketplace Drive, your indirect left. So no direct left turns would be allowed at the intersection. You'll see a lot of these obviously in the Detroit area. Grand Rapids has quite a few of them. So you just have to go past the intersection, use the crossovers to come back to make that right turn into wherever you're heading.
So Jason, while you have that drawing up, I assumed that description was gonna be the J turn. What's the J turn?
So the J turn, I can show you right here. These are a little more unique. There is one over by Costco.
Yeah, it's out by the interchange that has our Martian Saginaw.
Yes.
Out by 69 by that speedway, that's big.
I still don't know. That's what Peter. Is this what they used to call like a Michigan turn? I've heard terminology used,
So
Michigan turn.
the indirect would be the Michigan turn.
Right.
Yep, yep.
Michigan left.
So this is relatively new, the J turn, what's been around, I don't know,
Well, it's new to Michigan.
new to Michigan. So can y'all, yeah, there's not many, right, throughout the state. So you can here see under this J turn alternative is you would be allowed to make, if you're heading westbound or eastbound on M43, you'd be able to make that direct left turn onto Marketplace. Let me zoom out a little more.
So if you go
One second,
back,
I brought it back.
go back to that intersection. So you can kind of see, that's like a J. That's where they get the J turn.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the
At the
curve.
intersection is just two opposite J's.
And it's two turning lanes?
Well,
Going
this
left?
option he's showing you right now.
B,
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll get in, we'll walk through the traffic operations. We'll show you why that needs to be that dual left turn lane. And we talked about that 2A alternative and 2B alternative. That's the difference. The difference here is that Marketplaces, the original ops template had it shown as a single left turn lane. And then when we looked into the new development, and new traffic projections, and then when we looked at that Saturday, we saw that if you keep this as a single left turn lane, is you're gonna have some significant delays and queues. And during that Saturday peak, it's gonna be difficult to get onto Marketplace with a single left turn. And that's kind of, we went back and forth with the modeling and looking at all the queues and delays and all that. And that's why we came up with this alternative 2B, the dual left at Marketplace.
So Jason, I understand. Why is that? I mean, basically you've added a median, correct, in the middle of the intersection?
Yep.
That separates the opposite direction J turns. And how does that, I'm just trying to understand how it improves safety or flow versus just direct left turns.
So in this situation, or just correct me if I'm wrong, Jason Fox, is we eliminate some of the phasing at the traffic signal.
You're getting rid of that through movement now too at Marketplace. They're all making that right hand turn now.
So you don't need green time for the through movement. So if you have that, for a full access, you have to have green time for your left turns, your through movements, and for each 4 legs. Under this situation, we eliminate that green time for the through movement. So now that heavy westbound left has more
Keep
green
flowing.
time to clear all the traffic out
I see.
through that.
That gives more time for each leg of the pedestrian. So with that indirect turn or indirect left, especially the intersections, pedestrians are using the intersection like it's a 4-way. Most likely in a very speedy countdown, it'd be quite, you have to be moving quite the effort to get across the intersection in the indirect left. That's one of the downsides is if you're a slow walker, if you use a mobility device, it may be more difficult to get across in a more comfortable fashion. The J turn allows you to rest in that pedestrian, in that island there. I think the way we have it initially programmed is it would be two light cycles to complete that. So you, as a pedestrian, you go from one corner into the median, wait in that median until the light clear again. That way you don't have to make a full crossing in one go. If you're fast enough, you probably could.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
But if you're not, if you have challenges, it would not, there's not enough time to cross completely.
I don't know the exact timing on it, but yeah, more than likely, if you had mobility issues, you would probably have to wait in the center island. And then we don't, there would be push buttons more than likely in the central island, so you would cross. You'd see, for example, if you're heading south across the
Yeah.
highway, you would
Right.
cross westbound traffic, get into the median, wait for the next red phase or the pedestrian phase to cross the eastbound approach, correct?
I have a question about the indirect left.
Yep.
Because you're going past Marketplace and then you're coming around doing that sort of Michigan turn. But is there anything to stop the traffic from turning right before Marketplace? There was a side street there.
They could turn it.
Okay, and so does that present any challenges by turning right? I don't know, a lot of traffic turning onto that street before the Marketplace? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to-
Commercial drive is the other one.
Yep.
You can turn right.
Yeah, it looks like you can, but are there going to be any traffic buildup, jams down as you get around in there and you're into the main hub of that plaza? Or will it, because,
Other on the private.
Right.
yes,
Yeah. So as part of this modeling, we only looked at the traffic on 43. Yeah.
okay.
So as part of that, yeah, and what you'll see is when we ran the modeling, you'll see a lot of obviously, when you're leaving this area westbound, is a lot of that traffic is heading to the ramps. So you'll see when we run the modeling, you can see this lane this lane will get a lot of traffic in it because a lot of folks, they're coming out of the development, they're heading eastbound to the ramps and they're getting in this right turn lane now because a lot of folks are coming this way down on the ramps. So
I know that the intention is you're making this Michigan turn and you're gonna go to Marketplace, but it's like, why would I go all the way back to Marketplace when I could turn right 2 streets before?
yeah, and you'll see that.
And
which,
that's
yeah,
okay.
that's okay. Yep. And we actually, alleviate some, what you'll see is, obviously a lot of local traffic is, eventually down the road, whatever, 5 years, whatever, maybe you'll see a little more balancing with the internal drives like
Yes.
you're talking about. So the local traffic will know, I can make it right here. I don't have to go to Marketplace.
Right.
You will see some internal balancing and again, local folks, I'm gonna go this way instead to avoid the traffic. Yep. So you'll see some of that.
Cool.
Any other questions about and then too, again, well, when we're done talking about here, we can walk over. We've got bigger displays there. You can grab a marker if you want to draw on it, write questions, whatever we're gonna do. We can walk through all that. If you have any more questions about specific locations.
Just without trying to get too deep and then, but just so I don't regret asking this question later, those roads are all public roads and are they all set the same for load? So my fear or what Fonda's question made me think about is if a lot of the traffic goes on the preceding street, but that street wasn't designed to be a primary traffic pattern and it's not set for a similar load, are we gonna have maintenance issues more quickly? Or I know I'm really
Right.
dissecting and I'm just curious. if
Addressed
it's a
in your
factor.
documents. I thought it said no trucks or something.
Because I would say, designed for semis to go on.
Right.
Those places.
Because of deliveries.
delivery.
Mhm.
So I would assume, can't say for sure. We can't say
We
for
don't
sure
know.
what the design of it is.
Right.
It should.
Okay.
Basically, what I would, but piggyback what Aaron's saying, where the semis are going out for the deliveries, they're gonna go there. When this is done too, whatever road they take, I don't think they take any other.
An earlier
Right.
road.
Additional route or anything, especially for a semi in that first, Michigan left there to the west, to get around there and quick, make that first turn to the right would be,
Fair
more
point.
likely they're gonna go all the way.
Fair point, it would be hard.
I think
That'd be hard.
But I do think you'll pick up significant amount of traffic on that road compared to what it experiences today. whatever might be.
It
the
becomes a new
unintended
marketplace.
consequences of that. Could be.
Yeah, you kind of see that Eastwood Town Center, that kind of happened there. Folks, it was designed for one main entrance. Folks found a quicker, better way in, and that is now the main entrance, and it wasn't designed that way originally. So they do have that issue out there.
Mhm.
But yeah, and again, you'll find this anywhere. You have the locals will find some self-balancing. It'll help overall balance everything. But yeah, we don't know that the private developments, we don't know what their design stands there too, but in theory, they should have designed for those, their biggest trucks coming in for those deliveries. All right, share this here back.
This is where I get confused.
All right, can everyone see that? You want me to zoom in a little bit?
Sounds like they need it zoomed in a
Zoom in a little bit on that. I'll have to go
I have a
back to here
copy
then.
here in front of me that may help.
Oh, you can read it better back here.
Okay. So we just want to go over this real quick is kind of how we got to these traffic operations, right? So as part of this study, we looked at the existing traffic conditions. That's the model we're showing here. We looked at the no build conditions, which was we bring all this future traffic onto the existing network. What's going to happen to these existing intersections? And that analysis helps us determine the future alternatives, where we need an initial right turn lane, 2 through lanes, whatever that may be. That helps us figure out that geometry. And I'll just kind of keep it a higher level here. We can, if you want to ask questions, feel free, but really the focus is obviously marketplace. That's where a lot of our traffic's going. So again, you can see here, this is the existing conditions. So you can see with today's traffic, this is what the traffic operations are. I know sometimes it gets a little confusing about these operations. We do have a little figure here showing the description of what this level service E means. As you can see here, so anytime it's level service E, we show it in red, it's long delays and long queues. You may have to sit through 2 signals sometimes. We don't want to see E's and F's typically. So when we look again, we look at the existing conditions out here, we see that the westbound left is operating level service E, significant delays, long queues. And then the southbound movement out of marketplace is operating level service E, with longer delays and longer queues. And I think I've been out here a few Saturdays where I've sat through 3 lights sometimes southbound and marketplace. So what we found is, we've all tried this as well. We live in the area, is that this existing conditions model probably does a pretty good job actually predicting what's happening out there today. So we trust the model, believe in it, shows real world experience. Yeah, here's what we're experiencing when we're out here. Does anybody have any questions on the existing conditions model?
And again, based on what you said, it says existing PM peak hours.
Yep.
That was a Saturday.
So we'll get into that one
Saturdays.
second. That's a good question. So what we found is when we're looking at the overall traffic, typically for any MDOT project, any local agency project, is you design for your AM and PM weekday peak hour. So that's the approach we took first. Is the PM in this situation, the PM weekday peak hour was the controlling peak hour. There was more traffic entering during the PM peak than there was the AM. So we took that scenario and used that for the basis of our modeling to see what's going out in the project area. And then when we talk about a little later, then the next step was look at those Saturday conditions, and we'll show those 2 in 1 sec.
Okay.
So based on that, again, now this is the no build scenario, 2048. So these are our 20-year traffic projections. It shows 20 years of growth, but it also included all the proposed developments, the Bass Pro, the senior citizen home, the medical center to the west. So it included all those developments. We throw all this new traffic onto the existing road network, and we press play on the model and see what happens. We see what happens. So based on that, obviously, we all know what's going to happen, right? We add all this new traffic. We don't make any road improvements. And this optimizes the signal timing, so we can play with future signal timing to make some things work, some things not work. But what you can really see here is that southbound marketplace gets significantly worse. 582 seconds of delay. So you're sitting there for 5-6 cycles. It's a long delay, long queues. You're able to keep westbound left turn relatively reasonable level service E still. You can, again, tweaking the signal timings, allowing that westbound left more green time. And then what you'll see here now, though, is that eastbound left turn on the marketplace fails, poor E level service. And then that the northbound left also goes to level service F, which is to be expected. You're adding this traffic, everything fails in this situation.
Mhm.
So the next part of the study was, well, what do we need to do to improve these traffic operations to provide acceptable levels of service? So that was where we came up with the alternatives. Alternative 1, the indirect lefts. Alternative 2, the J turns. So when we model those new alternatives onto the road network, So what do you have here? This is the indirect alternative. So you can see at Marketplace by adding this new alternative. So what we're doing here is we're taking out the left turns out of the intersection. So now we don't need there's no green time for left turns. So we can provide more green time to the through movement and the westbound movement. Because now the left turn's got to go through the intersection, come back in that indirect Michigan left. You can see under that scenario on this indirect alternative, it provides some pretty good traffic operations all around. We've only got one level service D for the Marketplace southbound right. So we ran that alternative. It works great. Provides acceptable level of service. It provides pedestrian rescue. So those are the kind of benefits of that alternative. So the next step was to look at the J turn alternative. And this is what we'll talk about a little about the single lane and the dual lane. So when we take a look at the same traffic volumes, the 2048 future volumes, and we lay down the J turn alternative, we showed earlier that this allows direct lefts, westbound and eastbound, but there's no north and south through movement. You can see here as the J turn also provides pretty good levels of service, acceptable traffic volumes, no minimal delays, minimal queues.
In your survey or in your looking or when you prepared these projections, you included additional businesses. Did you include housing?
So anything that was,
Housing.
what's that? No, sorry. So anything that was on that's been approved plan was included. You know, we can't predict housing in some situations. We don't know everything that's going to happen. And at some point, what you'll find is we have these 20-year projections and a lot of times we'll include this wide net of everything. And you'll see in 10 years, the economy changes, things change and then we don't reach those. So you really we only typically take what's planned for, what's accounted for. So what they have is each, like Bass Pro developed a traffic impact study that goes to the township, that goes to MDOT for review. They approve those traffic volumes. We plug those into our model.
Well, I'll ask this of Peter. Did they project, isn't housing proposed in the development already?
Yeah, so
For the-
yeah,
one of the phases?
I worked with the Delta Crossings team to update their traffic study that encompasses everything, at least that they are aware of now. I mean, that could subject to change, but it was kind of max build out. So that's the information that the consultant team is working off of. So everything that we had, the township has either in the books now or that we're aware of that's planned has been incorporated.
Thank you.
And here's just a quick comparison of the alternatives during the PM peak. Again, it just shows that they both work well at Marketplace. They're both providing acceptable level of service. So what we found is Saturday volumes vary. They're different than our weekday PM peak. Obviously, you get more folks coming in and out to go drive through the quarter, eat at the restaurants, go shopping. So what we found is when we ran the Saturday peak hours, 2048 future volumes, this is the Michigan left alternative. We saw what's really critical in this one is this crossover here. It fails during the Saturday peak. You see it's that through movement at the crossovers, 79 seconds to delay a level service E. So again, your long delays in queue sitting there for, a couple of 2 or 3 cycle lengths. So then we also ran the J turn option under the Saturday conditions. And you can see here, this is the single left turn. And so under that J turn alternative, the single left at Marketplace, you can see that westbound left fails during the Saturday peak. The southbound movement fails and also that eastbound through movement fails. So when we ran those 2 scenarios, we said, look, maybe we have to look at some of the different lane configurations. So that's where we took a look at the dual left turn lane under the J turn option. And you can see now is by having this dual left, we can spread the green time around the whole intersection. So now the eastbound movement provides excellent level service. You got C's, B's, and A's. This westbound left now operates at a level service D instead of that E. So by adding that second dual left, it significantly increased the capacity, accommodated more traffic volumes at Marketplace. So instead, before there was 3 throughs and a single left, now it would be 2 throughs and a double left. So you're not adding the crossing pavement for pedestrians. You're just changing the usage of one lane from a through to a left. So that was kind of a high level look at the traffic analysis. Anybody have any questions? Let's see, want to look at other intersections. Everything else operates well. Again, the marketplace was that main focus, that bottleneck for the corridor.
What's the, am I pronouncing it right? McGaldy Lane?
Mhm.
What, why is that a struggle? Is it because it's between the two lights the whole time that compounds that?
Yeah, that's probably part of it. So it's unsignalized coming out of McGaldy Lane. There's a heavy movement in front of it. So it's just, it doesn't have enough gaps to get out into traffic. And that's another example you'll see, local folks, people who come shop here often will see, I can't get out of McGaldy Lane ever. So I'm gonna go to the Shell gas station, Tin Can Drive, Menards Drive, and you'll see some of that balancing. So then maybe, again, this is 20 years down the road too, don't forget. So
Sure.
when this opens in what, 2029, whatever the construction date is, that around, you'll be seeing level service, a much better level service for opening day. And then once those developments start, whenever those may occur, this is a 20-year prediction. So this is really showing you a worst case scenario. But yeah, that's a good example. Again, there's a lot of traffic out here. We're trying to minimize the through lanes, the laneage, so folks are more comfortable walking, and there's just not a lot of gaps to get out of the driveways. And kind of the benefit of.
Awesome options. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Love-
Yeah.
Love that you put this together.
Yep, and the kind of the, obviously the main benefit of the boulevards is, if you recall, purpose and need, our purpose and need statement from last month is improve safety on the corridor. So that's not only pedestrian safety, but also, vehicle safety. So obviously, currently, there's a lot of direct lefts in and out of driveways, and you'll see that's where a lot of these crashes occur. So you put the boulevard in, you eliminate the indirect or the left turns, and you reduce those crashes significantly. So.
What
Yeah.
exactly is the, go ahead.
Go ahead. With the proposed changes, are we keeping the same level of speed for the vehicles?
Yes. So it'll be the same. So this is it's an MDOT gold route. So the lane, the truck, the width has to accommodate semi vehicles. So the laneage, correct me if I'm wrong, correct? The lane width has to stay at 12 feet and
It's gonna stay at 11.
stay at 11 feet, sorry. Yep. And the speed limit will stay posted as is, correct?
Again, this is just an annoying detail. Sorry for being anal, but, so I just trying to make sure that I understand this correctly. On the three options here, future 2048 indirect Saturday hours, right? Just to pick arbitrarily, commercial drive, looks like you would expect a 15-second wait or B rating to turn right out of there towards the highway, right?
Yep.
Correct? But when we add the J turn, that time actually goes up. It increases to 34 seconds. And when we add the double lanes, it goes up to now an F, future, to your point, to 96. I'm just trying to understand how those positive changes negatively affect the results.
Yeah, I would have to look at the modeling more. I'm guessing what's probably going on there is since this is an unsignalized drive, Aaron, you can help me out if you have any thoughts as well, is you're probably putting a lot more through traffic in front of that driveway.
Yeah, so what's happening is we gotta accommodate that left hand to head southbound. So if you only have, say, one lane, you have to give more time to that left. So what that does is the same operation that happens right now is you have protected left, and then you can also make that northbound right turn movement. When you go to the two lanes, it's more efficient to move the lefts. So when you do that, you actually have less of a window if you're on Commercial Drive to turn north, where you kind of have that protected left, like shielding you from the eastbound. So that's kind of why it gets a little bit harder. It's just because there's more reading time on Saginaw, so you have a little bit less of a window to make that right. That being said, we've talked about traffic balancing, and I would think that more people would move over to Marketplace if you don't have like protected.
And Shell. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so you can see all these, they all have trade-offs, they all have impacts, it's, like talk about the purpose and need. We do one thing, it doesn't necessarily address this part of the purpose and need, but it moves more traffic. So there's a lot of trade-offs, a lot of back and forth on these alternatives, and it's a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of traffic in this corridor, that's for sure. I can walk through the alternatives real quick. You guys want to walk through them up here? You want to go in the back? How?
Is there one more question?
And I was just wondering about the mediums, what you're calling mediums.
Yep.
Is that like raised or what is it?
Yep, so those would be raised medians, something you would see. Where's our closest raised median out here?
By the mall, maybe.
Yeah, by the mall,
Short
yeah, a
one.
little short one there, out by,
So
yeah,
like 5, 8 inches or lower.
those are 6 inch, 4 inch curbs. Or yeah, 4 to 6 inch curbs, yeah, so there'll be a curb this way.
How wide?
Is it
Depends
here?
on the alternative, but I think it narrows up to 3 foot. That's like where you got the dual left. But like through here, you're about 20 foot.
And then the J turn median strip, how wide would that be?
Again, that depends on the alternative for the dual left.
Yeah.
It's about what, 24 foot, I would say. North and south and about 16 foot wide.
The median is shown as green in these, that doesn't mean that it's all gonna be grass. We have not discussed what it's actually gonna be yet to a lot of detail. It's gotta be really hard to get a mower in there and a lot of the spots.
I wouldn't want that, John.
Real challenging.
I choked on my water.
We might have to turn.
Trying to make a point there?
To Dave's point, we might have to turn them all into rain gardens in order to deal with all of the stormwater runoff in this area, so who knows? That's a very detailed, and that doesn't necessarily affect the design choice between the J turn and because there will be the medians or either both one of these indirects or the J turn, so.
Thank you.
So I can walk, you want to walk through real quick on my screen here and explain through, I can do that. Okay, so this is the indirect left alternative one, Michigan lefts. And you can see the solar project area started from the southbound off ramps to the west. So there's kind of a few things we wanted to point out, you're maintaining access here still to the on ramp there. And one thing you'll notice on these alternatives, these little bump outs here that are called loons, bump outs. So what happens is to in order to accommodate a semi truck is with this narrow medians is the semi truck will come through and make its crossover movement. And it will need to use this bump out traffic loon to be able to make that U-turn movement. So that's why you'll see that bump out there. And we have a couple other bump outs too, we'll point out as well. So you have the median.
Or that ramp, that off ramp's being realigned.
Yep.
Yeah, so the ramp to the left of that is actually being gone, will be gone.
Oh, that's the
That's
correct one.
Yep.
between the Michigan indirect left.
Will that take place during this time or will that happen sooner or later
Or to be up all in one space.
or? Okay.
So obviously here's the median now, and then what we mentioned earlier is one of the benefits of this alternative, it's safer for vehicular turning movements. You eliminate that left turn. So you no longer have those crashes associated with folks trying to make lefts in and out of the unsignalized driveways. So that median comes all the way through to Marketplace. Said we walked through that indirect movement a little while ago, talking about coming through, then back around to the crossover. And you can see here's due to, again, the high level of traffic volumes, you'll need a southbound dual right and a northbound dual right to accommodate all the traffic in and out of the Marketplace intersection.
And Jason, what's the blue on these?
Those are sidewalks. We want to make sure those popped out so everybody can see them. Those are sidewalks would be replaced in kind.
And for the southbound traffic on Marketplace, is it one turn right lane, or wait, there's one straight and two turns lanes?
Yep.
Okay.
Seems a little wonky. I'll get it back. There you go. Yep. So it'll be southbound, dual right, and a single through movement.
Mhm.
And as you said, that last crossover we showed you that was to the east of Marketplace. This is the western crossover. And you can see here is there's not the bump out, the traffic lane's much smaller, obviously, because there's some significant right-of-way concerns here. So this crossover would not accommodate semis coming out of Marketplace. So when we get to Broadbent, we'll show you where the trucks would need to. So in this situation, trucks would need to pass this crossover, go through Broadbent. And there's a crossover west of Broadbent. They would have to go to that crossover, make their U-turn movement there and head back east through the project area along the corridor. So there would be too much right-of-way impacts to make a full-size loon in this location.
And how do they know that?
There'll be signage, right? No trucks. The
Yeah.
signage along the corridor saying trucks use crossover at Broad, or whatever that, I don't know how it'd be worded exactly, but it'd be noted that you cannot use that crossover. Use crossover west of Broadbent.
Then the first trucker that gets a ticket for impeding traffic will be the rest of the truckers.
Yeah,
There you go.
it'll happen for
Or
sure.
Take out the sidewalk when they're trying to turn.
Yeah. And then you can see here, this is the Broadbent intersection with the eastern crossover. You see here, there was more right of way room here, so we could use a larger loon, larger bump out, so the trucks can make their turning movement, if that ever happens, that situation, make their left turn movement through here, use the loon, and then head northbound on Broadbent. And one thing, and this has been brought up a few times, I guess one of the benefits of the indirect of this location, it does provide that north-south connection across M43 from one side of the developments to the other side of the developments. And then here's the western crossover. I think we're talking about, this will be bumped. I think we need a design change here. We're gonna move a little farther west. It's not a crossing Greenfield Road. And again, this is a semi that come here westbound, use their crossover movement here and head back eastbound through the corridor.
Our pathway.
And then it ties in right at Madonna Drive.
We don't have one, but we never.
Any questions? Anyone see any areas specifically?
But that was the indirect left.
Correct.
So in your opinion, simple pros and cons to the indirect left as opposed to the J.
So the biggest, and you help me fill me in here too, the biggest difference between the indirect left and the J turn is at Marketplace at Broadbent, is that indirect left turn is going to allow through movements. The J turn prevents those. And you'll see, but they also don't, keep in mind too, is we need to move traffic on here and we look at that Saturday peak and that J turn does a better job of accommodating Saturday traffic volume. So that's kind of the big trade-off between those two alternatives.
And is also the J turn, because of what you described earlier, slightly better for people who might have special needs getting across, so they could do it in two stages instead of one?
Under the median, yeah, so I can show you Marketplace
Okay.
here. Yeah, so you could, a pedestrian could cross southbound here and use the island is the same
Okay.
thing as that one. Yeah, so it's just in a different location essentially.
Fair enough.
They would still have the opportunity to cross one bound of traffic at a time. Aaron, any thoughts right about?
The indirect left is obviously better for people going straight through a Marketplace. It's worse for people turning left onto Marketplace. So they have to go
To the
through
roundabout,
Marketplace, turn
Michigan
around,
turn.
then turn. J turns are obviously worse for people going straight across the Marketplace, but better for turning left directly on the Marketplace.
I'm sure lots of people do it, but majority of people are going to one destination. Coming to go to Lowe's, coming to go to Menards, they're going to BJ's, not necessarily going to all of them at the same time, but we're kind of prioritizing into the development right back. Versus. And there's other ways for them to go around. They know the area, because a lot of times that's gonna be your goal. They know that they can go.
And during the public meeting that you're gonna have, will they be presented with all of the options, or are you expecting us to narrow it down?
So that's a good question. Is we've talked internally, the plan now is to present the indirect option, alternative 1, and then alternative 2B, the dual left turn J turn. We figured that the single lane can accommodate Saturday peak hour volume, so we don't want to present it to the public. It's really, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so we want the public to give us, give us their preferred of these two alternatives. So if you all have a preferred as well, obviously we'll take it, but we're not asking you to vote today.
Right.
On which of these alternatives, so.
I just want to make the point to the board members up here that, we have Banesh on the township team. So I'm glad that Mike said that today's not a crucial decision point for you, just based on what you're hearing. I mean, this is your introduction to the mapping and the alternatives, and they'll have the public meeting, but we're gonna be relying on some expert input from Doug to provide some guidance on some of these decision points. It'll give you a more detailed kind of pro and con to help you make an informed, opinion on one way or the other.
Great.
Yes, we'll present both to the public and we'll have comment forms, ways for them to provide comments, you know. We'll let ask them, what do you prefer? So that's kind of, that'll be the interaction with the public and they'll have that opportunity to provide those comments.
Excellent.
Good.
So I will skip right to the J-turn alternative. So everything to the west is, you know, pretty much the same. The ramp is being relocated to the east slightly, same location, the eastern crossover, same setup, same alignment. And one thing too, just to point out is during this traffic analysis, this really originally was a double left crossover. We had some concerns with that. It was pointed out by our team members. We went back and re-looked at this crossover and determined that a single left could accommodate that crossover. So we reduced that laneage in there. So here's the J-turn alternative at Marketplace. Oh, excuse me, going the wrong way. And for everybody. So as we talked about earlier, is that we originally looked at this as 3 through lanes and a single left turn lane. Again, based on Saturday volumes, we took this lane and converted it from a through lane to a left turn lane to make this a dual left onto Marketplace. And as we showed you earlier, the traffic operation, that worked much better with this dual lane alternatives. And that's why we're going to present that to the public instead of showing the single lane and the dual lane, just to avoid confusion, make it more simple to present.
Just for clarification, is this very similar to what we have? Oh man, down there by Goodyear and the Lansing Mall, as far as turning, having 2 lanes that turn in the same direction.
Is that a dual left there?
On Elmwood?
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right on here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be similar.
Okay.
Yep.
Very similar to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll see dual lefts around quite often. Obviously, the pavement marking is important to keep folks in their lane, but you'll see when you're making a dual left, people are usually pretty aware of what's going around. And there's a semi making a dual left. Most people aren't making the dual left at the same time. They're rushing ahead or pulling ahead and let that truck go by itself. So you'll see these throughout the state, these double lefts.
Excellent.
And just right out here, right out our window.
Yep.
So this required a double right southbound Marketplace as well, and then a dual right, double right, a northbound Marketplace to accommodate those Saturday peak hours. And we talked about the PEDs would cross here. They could cross westbound, wait to their green time, then cross eastbound as well.
And that median in the middle sort of blocks it if you're coming east, seems like a little bit, so they don't drive straight through. Do you know what I'm saying? So am I seeing that right, that it kind of comes out into the intersection a little bit?
Yeah, and
That's good.
Yep, comes in, protects that left turn and yep, exactly.
And the bottom lane right by your cursor is both straight through and turn right.
No, this is just a right only.
No, I'm sorry, up above on the main road, right?
Right here?
Yeah. I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah, so what we found in the traffic modeling is when this was it a right only? So I think it was, we had it as a right only originally. And what you'll see is a lot of folks start getting into the lane here, knowing they have to get on the ramp southbound. So based on some of the traffic analysis, looking with the project team, we figured we should make that a through right instead of a right only to help move traffic along better through the corridor. And then we have the same J-turn option at Broadbent. And then too, just to point out, we talked about that eastern crossover at Marketplace. You'll see the western crossover here is we do need a dual turn, a dual left, because there's a huge left turn volume making that movement. What happens is when you close, especially on the indirect left option, when you close Commercial Drive, a lot of folks were making lefts on the Commercial Drive. Well, now they have to make a left at Marketplace. Well, there's no direct left, so they have to come to this crossover. So you need a dual lane crossover at this location, just as that huge left that wants to go southbound to Marketplace. And then here's the J-turn option at Broadbent. So again, this does not allow through movements through the intersection.
Nice.
You said that's broken.
Yep.
Just for clarity, Jason, to the board. So if there's a semi up there on the north side going to BJ's or one or the other, and he wants to deliver to the south, he can't use that one from indirect left, just immediately west of Marketplace. He has to go past either Broadbent or turn left at Broadbent and come in the other.
Yeah, that's a good point, Doug. Yeah, so under all alternatives, yeah, trucks cannot use this crossover. They have to go all the way west of Broadbent.
So
Yep.
there's no, I just want to point out, there's no benefit to either one for that truck. He still has to go.
Yep.
Further down.
So it's a common.
Yeah.
Which is good because people.
Again, what you're gonna see, the biggest difference is that through movement. Yeah.
With any of these adjustments, as far as I'll call it the side streets, so like Marketplace, the driveways, are there gonna be any adjustments to driveways? So for like example, at Marketplace, I know right now coming off of Consumers, it gets really crazy. If you come out of Consumers, you wanna get all the way over to make that left. It doesn't look like it's long enough, I'll just call it a chute, to make it to line those cars up. So I would almost think, do you need to block off that driveway and have them drive out the back so that you're creating more?
Right, it's,
Run for the cars to be lined up properly?
yeah, I tried to make that movement a few times. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, right now we're only focused on M43. We really haven't looked at access management options internally. That's something I think would have to, Township would need to look into separately in that situation.
So no way we can fix right there at coming out of Cracker Barrel.
That's a tough one too. Yeah.
That's probably likely to come up in public comment
Yep.
when you present this, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
What you're trying to do, and I think,
Yep.
you know, see what kind of
Yeah,
momentum there is for that
Right.
concern.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
I think it's a legitimate one, for
Yeah.
sure,
It is.
100%.
Yeah, that access management is always a challenge, obviously, and
Mhm.
most business folks don't want a driveway closed or relocated. So it's always a tough challenge when you start talking about access management.
Yeah, driver patterns will change, you know, after a big project like this, so sometimes it's best just to wait and see what they actually end up doing until we, you know, make any major decisions, that's like site streets and stuff.
It's, again, fascinating to me that the indirect turns, because of the aforementioned reasons earlier, are favorable to the straight through traffic on West Saginaw between Menards and Marketplace versus the J turns. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, again, it's just a function of that signal timing there. Allowing more traffic, less gaps, yeah, and you can see the knock-on effect it has throughout the corridor, yeah.
Mhm.
Anybody else have any specific questions? Want to look at a specific location, traffic operation questions? Again, we have all the displays back here laid out that show a little more detail on an aerial, and again, feel free to take a
Yes.
marker, pencil, mark them up.
You guys want to go look at those?
I do.
In a bigger picture, see them?
All right.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
What are you talking about? Crossing to the east, I was gonna wait, see if you. Gonna wait till later.
Okay.
What a need for that, I didn't even bring it up. It's quite
Wait on that, yeah.
Yeah, that side friction, yeah.
Indirect is not.
Maybe we can make yellow. Yeah, figure out who's got a matrix changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah,
Or maybe even like that visual.
right, yeah.
That was just right now. Right now.
Yes, not.
If the cars stack up, right?
But if you get on the street house, you know how when they're coming out, you can't. Turn on them, they prevent you, so you gotta walk the one line, stack up.
Good to know. Well, that's what I think they're talking about, people find their own way, but it's still good to try and consider it.
Just another.
See, this is weird. What's funny to me is I use it the opposite right now. When I come down here to my house, I can never sit like this. I've seen that. Yeah. But again, people will learn.
Right, that's what I'm doing.
This is yeah. Yeah, for sure. My opinion. It's always right.
Yeah. Well, right now, you can't.
You can't.
You're not supposed to make it.
Right.
Right.
So I don't pull right here, you have to sit there.
Yeah.
So just sit there. It's like,
That was all right.
I didn't realize that first thing. That's what we were. I see that, yeah, that's what I sit there.
Back and forth.
So this is another.
A lot of opposition. And then as soon as it got developed, people started using it. That's
Actually, I had to do it because I wanted to, you want to look for a farm creamery. So we came up, because we were at that, we came up and down, and we go, and make a right, and then to make that first left, and keep going up. No, since I was on
Sure.
Yes, I got both selfish and.
Take a truck back.
This is like. It's growing. It's got great. All you do is make one balance, and then you get two people going to the dance. And stay at home. I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't change your plan on my, maybe like, right now. People are talking. Oh, let's just keep my mind.
So that, but I'll say that here's the Michigan.
Lifelong smoker, that's last 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, but that's, yeah. Well, I know it was like a little hard, like, okay, here's a little tray, yeah, we do have to start figuring out if you're trying to.
Still, yeah, so was that running?
That's quick.
Yeah, that's.
You look really. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just,
Yeah.
looking at how. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, I thought about that, but I didn't want to be able to do it.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing?
Not bad.
Been busy?
Yeah, I mean, we're facing some headwinds compared to last year. Location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really,
Not a ton, but
Really.
What's that?
I really love your East Lansing.
Thanks.
That's my favorite.
All those places are like that.
They are, they're great. Even Culver's.
You got specialties all over.
I did pretty soon of one north of Marketplace.
Yeah, we make sure that's true. I did.
Thanks for that. I think everybody appreciated the drawings to see
Yes.
things on a bigger scale and the descriptions. Does anybody have any questions after that or additional comments or thoughts?
No,
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
so much.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to email or send them to Peter, even send them along. Yeah, any questions pop up, please let us know.
Sure.
Great.
Or need more information, let us know.
Peter, what are the next steps, if any, for this follow-up?
Yes, the next steps are, we're barreling towards a public meeting on June 17th. That kind of leads us into the second part of this item on the agenda. So June 17th, here in this room, maybe with some overflow to adjacent rooms, will be the public information meeting. And the project team is leading that. The township is here to support and participate and, help people understand the plan and kind of navigate the options.
And Jason, other than the visuals, are there best practices or things that you found help? Like you had to get us up to speed without maybe the ability, what's the best way to make sure they have the information they need to ask questions and give feedback to us?
So as part of the public information meeting, we're gonna have display boards around the room. There'll be, 10 to 15 display boards, and we are gonna do a presentation. So I think right now we're planning 5 to 7.
Two presentations, I saw it.
Yep, so at 5:30, we'll have a presentation. Then folks will be able to walk around, ask questions. Then again at 6:15, we'll have another presentation. What we found is if we say there's a presentation at 5:30, people show up at 5 and no one comes after. So we're trying to do 2 presentations. So get folks realizing, you can come both times, or it'll be an open house as well. So 2 presentations in an open house format.
And it's June 17th and
So Tuesday night here in this room from 4 to 7 is the entire event. But I do want to tell you what the township team is doing to supplement the outreach on this.
okay,
Because we can be good some of the technical details, our team's not going to have. Like I did mention, Banesh is going to speak to us at our next meeting, or even in between, provide some communication analysis of the alternatives and some pros and cons of all of them. Ultimately, we're leading to, I got a couple things to say, but ultimately we're leading to the project team is going to be looking to this board for a recommendation. Doesn't have to be full-throated recommendation, but definitely what of the preferred of the alternatives that have been identified is the preference of this board. And we can talk about how that's communicated and kind of with what strength that is communicated by. But at that point, you'll have some information from our engineering consultant and some other things that are going to help you kind of get there. We'll have that public meeting on the 17th. Leading up to that, the township team, in coordination and support from the MDOT team, is going to be sending out notices to approximately 1,200 businesses, property owners, occupants. And we're doing the entire West Saginaw Highway corridor, so both north and south side, all parcels, commercial businesses up front on West Saginaw. That will get a postcard from us. That's just this one component. I'll say the physical media component is a mailing. It's gonna hit everybody on West Saginaw, and then I don't have a map that's gonna show you now, but if you just envision the entire Delta Cross, basically from the highway over to Madonna, basically that entire project area, north and south, we're sending a postcard to everybody there, business, household, otherwise, we'll get something. We'll have robust social media push for the public meeting, because it's still informational at this point. And at the end of the day, we don't want anybody to think that they didn't get all the information to be able to make an informed, call on this. So that's really kind of where we're pushing, since we don't have the expertise at the township side, we're not managing the project. We want to make sure we're getting all the right people to the table to voice their opinions and to share their thoughts with the team. So that's really kind of for this group until we get through that public meeting. So sometime before July, this group will need to communicate kind of a more formal, again, we'll talk about what that is, recommendation on at least the alternative that's selected.
and what you just described, are you suggesting that that the group has a consensus preferred idea prior to the public meeting or after the public?
I would say after.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I was planning on bringing this back at our next meeting. By then, we'll have Doug Strauss, who had to go, We'll have a memo or I don't know what format it'll take at this point, but it's gonna provide some more information on this. So we will share. I mean, we will share with the MDOT team as well.
Mhm.
To the things, he's reviewed the project and has identified X, Y, Z. I don't know what those are yet, but. Yep.
Yes.
Peter, will this go before the township board?
We are planning on having the project team and the board. I thought it was gonna be after this public input meeting. We haven't really talked about the dates of that, but yes, absolutely.
Okay. And I had one other thought. I lost it. It'll come to me. Sorry, there was another thought that I had. Oh, I know. Is there a possibility of recording the public meeting and putting it on our website or on our YouTube page? So for
Yeah.
businesses and others to be able to see it at a later time?
We'll do our best. I'll talk to our IT crew and see what the best way to do it, because I'm envisioning kind of a scenario like this where sometimes we're up here, we might be in other places. We can at least probably video, I can tell how old I am. The actual the formal meeting parts.
Yeah.
And then there'll be, workspaces after that, but yeah.
Good.
We'll work on that. Any thoughts or anything that come around after your whatever, having dinner tonight, you think I didn't ask a question? Let's just use me to route information to the team, so just send them to me. I'll be the clearinghouse for the CIA board.
I personally might throw out for suggestions. Now that I understand it better, found the indirect weekday and J-turn weekday comparisons to be helpful. Maybe if that covered more intersections, so that if we're really trying to get people to pick between two, we can walk them back and forth, but that might just help somebody see them side by side, what gets worse, what gets better.
Yeah, we do plan presenting the traffic operations. We've been talking about how to present it exactly, but that was part of our plan, is to show folks how these two alternatives operate, what's happening. Yeah, so we will have some form of that.
As you've said, or someone said, there are trade-offs. It's not so obvious that one of these is clearly always better. And the public should at least be able to chime in on that.
Yeah, yep. And we will have a board too comparing the alternatives. See, here's alternative 1, alternative 2. Here's the criteria we compared them against, and here's how the project team scored them, bad, better, best, worst, yes, no, whatever it may be. We are gonna rank them, compare them to each other and score them.
Great. Any additional discussion?
Right.
We showed that scoring matrix. too,
Yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
That kind of gives us that, so we'll have that fine.
Okay, thank you. Any additional discussion, comments? Do we need to cover anything more about the public meeting?
Not for the West Saginaw Highway project.
You're good.
I mean, obviously, I think everybody will try to be at the public meeting, but I assume it's not mandatory that
Definitely not mandatory. It would be helpful to have people like this group in the room to help coordinate conversations, just kind of work the room and talk to people, what's going on, hear what they're saying. They may be more willing to say something to you than they might be to them. It would be helpful. So when we get closer to that, just keep that Tuesday, June 17th, 4 to 7 in your mind. I'll send something out. That's the night
got it
though.
down. Okay,
And that is locked in. So that's happening June 17th,
perfect.
unless I hear otherwise.
No.
The next 24 hours.
If you haven't.
Once that postcard goes out, we're having a meeting.
I think
What's that do to go out? Postcards?
Well, I'll talk to Mary, our communications manager, about the best timing on that. We don't want to send it too early or too late, so I'm gonna use Mary's kind of guidance on that.
Okay, I know we tabled, if we're ready to move on, the election of officers update, but I'm not sure what the discussion was since I wasn't.
We
here,
did.
so-
This is more of a follow-up. So I just wanted to, since it was on, we're again not doing election officers today. At the next township board meeting, we're gonna have, we the collective, we are gonna have, Donald Lavelle, if you haven't met Donald Lavelle, is here. He's one of the candidates to serve on the CIA board.
Great.
He has an IT business on the corridor. Troubleshooters LLC. They're down in the office building, on the north side of the building, past Elmwood, right? Just past Elmwood. And then there is Keith Wright, who you've seen here at a couple of meetings. He works with Consumers Credit Union down the way in front of Delta Crossings, is up for consideration. And then Bill, who's already here, would be considered for reappointment. And that'll be on the 19th, the board's meeting next week on the 19th.
Nice.
At least that's what we're expecting, action on that.
Mhm.
And then from there, at the next meeting of the CIA board, I think you could have a robust election of officers with everybody being considered.
Okay,
Mhm.
sounds good. Any
But,
comments?
sorry, but just a reminder,
Yep.
the ascendancy model for the CIA requires, requests, advises that the current vice chair, Scott, would ascend to the chair. The current secretary would ascend to vice chair, that's Rachel, and then we'd have the open secretary position. So there would be one open officer position.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, not to be sorry, it's helpful. What about the corridor visioning? What was the?
Corridor
thoughts on
vision,
that?
we started talking about this. I had some thoughts. I was gonna kind of check in with the group, but it's already almost 20 after, so if we want to bring that back at the next meeting, I'll have be ready to walk the team through. We're in the infant stages of kind of expanding the focus from beyond just now. Coincidentally, this project is heating up, so there's, the attention is kind of back on West Saginaw right now, but there's a lot more of West Saginaw. So the discussion is how are we gonna, it's more of a meta discussion about how are we gonna talk about this? What's the best way to get into it? So that's coming for you.
Yeah, to me, the backbone, the road feels like, if I could use a probably overused metaphor, like the backbone.
Mhm.
But, we have broader responsibilities than that, and it's great place to start, so. I'm anxious to see what we do with that. Any other old business that wasn't listed that anybody needs to bring up? Nothing to vote on, so any new items of business we want to tackle or bring up for future meetings?
I don't have anything new for you.
Okay, did you want to give us some staff updates?
I don't have a lot, and with respect to the time, I'll just talk about a couple things. And some of you heard my updates, you probably heard this stuff before, but the Horrocks bathrooms are open, so, obviously anchor on the corridor, Horrocks, add the bathrooms into the greenhouse building there, now open, it's gonna facilitate, it's a long time coming, so there's a long story to get here. But, they have musical performances and serve beer and food into the greenhouse, so it is really transformed that space into now a legitimate, permitted space that people can safely gather in, and now they have an amenity to suit that, so it's good. Working with a couple new businesses about spots on the corridor, we can talk about that at a future meeting. You're gonna see some food trucks pop up around Delta Township, mostly around the Horrocks site, but we have a pretty robust food truck program that we do license them and inspect them, and we've had, anywhere from 5 to 10 at any given time. So you'll see a lot more of those coming. So the most visible probably initially is gonna be El Oasis. The truck's already out at Horrocks, so they took the spot of the Edo Chef. So Edo Chef moved to Florida, took the trailer with them. El Oasis is, I think they took their truck from Mason and moved it in front of Horrocks. It's a different, in front of the beer garden at Horrocks. I think it's a way better layout. We've been working with them to make it a safe space. Before Edo Chef was faced out in the parking lot, and it was just not a very pedestrian friendly environment. Not that you could probably ever describe the Horrocks parking lot as a very friendly or human environment, but we're trying to do the best of the, dealing with all those factors. So they're out there.
What's, if you don't mind me interrupting, what's
Yeah.
the goal of the food trucks and for the community, or is this a Horrocks?
It's not just a Horrocks thing, yeah.
Oh, that's where I'm at. The traffic is, I hate going there just because it's so crowded, it's hard to walk, it's hard to park. And it just seems like that's gonna make it worse. Not only does it take up space, but it draws.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on your perspective. They seem to be super popular. The food trucks in general, I mean, all around the same time, municipalities in this area started adopting was pre-COVID, but really strengthened during COVID to get businesses open and outside. We do have there's a pretty strong contingent of operators in the greater Lansing area that wanted to come around. I think the licensing requirements just to make sure the structures are safe, the trucks and the units themselves are safe. Because if you've ever seen what can happen, I mean, they're to a bomb essentially. It can be really bad. So our fire inspector and electrical inspector inspect all units that are operating at Delta, and they inspect them every year. And this is in lieu of kind of a statewide policy framework, which doesn't exist right now, so we do it at the local level. And our ordinance mirrors East Lansing, Meridian Township, really anybody else that's regulating these with any kind of diligence. So, I mean, that's the general.
I'm not against them,
Yeah.
a bunch of much. A handful of our old chefs have their own food trucks.
Sure.
They're great. I love them. My question really is why at Horrocks when it's already a hugely congested area versus a local park or a government building that's not used on the weekends.
The bigger
I've
why
seen
is it's more, they applied for they've applied to have them there and they want them, they think that it supplements but really their greenhouse.
It does for
Operation.
concerts, their
Yeah.
concerts, I think, start around 5:30 when they have them. And it's nice to have food that you could just go to the little truck and get your food and then enjoy the concert while you're there.
I've also seen food trucks though at Menards and the store next door.
They're in a couple other spots around, yeah.
Does the parking requirements change then when you start adding food trucks?
It really doesn't. My philosophy on parking and our ordinance is if you can meet the minimum standard. And from there, if you're willing as a business to give up parking space, you have to have agreement from the property owner to be there. So we wouldn't let Oasis just come to One North without seeing that One North agreed for Oasis to be here.
Yeah.
So I figure at that point, that's a business, that's the decision that the business is making. If they want to give away 4 parking spaces to allow a food truck to operate, to me, that's their decision to make. I haven't.
It is, but.
Yeah, I haven't held.
Frankly, you do tell me how many parking spaces I have to have at my restaurant.
You have to have a minimum number of parking spaces.
So it doesn't seem to be applying to them when they're using all those spaces, but. I'm just playing
Yeah,
devil's
sure.
advocate. It's a very busy area,
Yep.
so, okay.
Other things on the corridor, really quick, we got Best Buy under construction still at Delta Crossings, they're getting closer. We're getting closer to issuing site plan approval for the Bass Pro Shops. That is still, still have some technical details to work out with that, namely the turnover of the utilities and the conversion of Marketplace Boulevard to a public road. Those items, significant items are not yet complete. Jiffy Lube just got completed. They should be gotten their C of O this afternoon. So they're probably open for business either now or will be tomorrow. I think it looks pretty good. If you haven't seen it for an oil change place, it's brick and it's attractive. So
Right.
I think that's a win compared to what it could have been. McLaren is still under construction. They're doing really well. If you haven't looked, go online. There's a construction cam that's 24/7. I pulled it up at like 1 a.m. at my house. It was dark and nothing's going on, but it's live. So check that out. You can watch the McLaren under construction. And then there's a Shell station. It's called Easy Mart, just like 2 buildings down from here. That whole site's gonna get scraped and redeveloped into a larger convenience store with still gas pumps, but it's definitely an eyesore property. They have an old car wash that's in really bad shape, so that whole property is gonna get redeveloped here soon.
And I'm assuming there's no additional activity on Brookside that you're aware of,
Correct.
right? They did go through the court case again. And so now the guy who developed Eastwood Town Center, Steve Haywood,
Yeah.
is now in charge of that whole thing on behalf of Julie, who was my guide's old girlfriend, that now is taking over the whole property for her animal shelters.
Okay,
Interesting.
Very.
that's all for me. Unless Manager Reed has something.
I think you covered it.
Anybody? Now we just want to go home. Okay, the next meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 9th at 4
Yep.
PM in the same room. Everybody hopefully can make it. Any other business for the good of the commission? I will adjourn us at 5:25.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting. Thank you.
So what they're gonna be.
Thank you. Pardon me?
Is there gonna be